Today on Public Research with Daniel Schwartz. The emergence of a new superstar in the world of far-right conspiracy theory. We explore the rise in films of talk show host Stu Peters with Richmond, Virginia-based journalist Goad Gatsby.
Today, I'm lucky to be joined by Goad Gatsby, who's a Richmond, Virginia-based journalist, and he does a lot of great journalism. And we're going to explore the life and works of the new star of the conspiracy universe, Stu Peters. You might call him sort of the new Alex Jones.
I'm so tired of talking about it. It's time that we do something about it. And what that something looks like, I'm not sure. Russian boogeyman called Vladimir Putin, he kicked the Rothschild criminal central banking cabal out of his country and wants no part of this one world governance. What is happening with the conservative movement and all of this normalization of sodomy and sickness and now child porn?
So we're gonna drag Tony Fauci out of retirement. We're gonna put him in the docket. We will force him to confront his lies about gain-of-function research.
How did he come on your radar, first of all?
Stuart Peters, he really just hit me after he made a couple appearances on Alex Jones, but the movie Died Suddenly just became a really big phenomenon just anywhere you would turn within like right-wing circles. And I decided to check out the movie, look into like all the people that were involved in all of these movies, and figure out what actually is the underlying cause and like what they're trying to say, sort of like the message of all of these movies. And it was even dumber than I could have possibly thought. I know I sent you some clips, but I just don't think like I could hammer in just like a little short introduction about like how bad it is.
Well, let's go to so this guy used to be a bounty hunter, and like a lot of these figures in the far right, actually, he's a failed rapper. What's his background? Where's he from?
Yeah, so Stu Peters, he's an Aries, born April 1st, April Fool right there, 1980. He's from the Minnesota, Minneapolis area. Struggling actor, went over to Los Angeles for a while, and then a rapper, which is, he kind of overlaps with the huge popularity of Atmosphere. And if anybody's ever heard of Atmosphere, really big around like 2010,
Right.
And just big in the Minneapolis rap scene, specifically like a white guy rapper. And if you listen to his music, you can definitely hear like the influence in that. But doesn't really go anywhere. He makes a couple music videos. I don't think he ever put out any full-length albums. And at the same time, he's working as a bounty hunter within the state of Minneapolis, while also having like a social media presence. Using his body cam footage, uploading that, being part of like other networks of doing like interviews. And he gets the ire of a lot of lawmakers in Minnesota. Eventually, like they changed the laws, like making it too difficult for him. But he's also involved in the company he has. Two of the bounty hunters that work for him apprehend a suspect in Texas, but in doing so, that there is a gunshot, and all three of them are fatally shot. Also, Stu Peters is arrested and takes a plea deal involving a domestic violence with his wife. So that ends him. So if you want to put on his resume, he's actor, rapper, bounty hunter, pundit, and abuser. So that's the Stu Peters story.
So he's a victim of police reform. So the liberals created him.
Yeah, I mean, if you also think about Minneapolis in 2020, there's nothing more obvious than the George Floyd uprising. It's
Right.
starting in Minneapolis, as that's also part of his shtick. When he's on there, he starts to be opposed to sort of this like welfare entitlement, conflating that to the high crime that he has to go and catch people without standing warrants.
So, when did he start his talk show?
From my understanding, he started his show like a little bit after the 2020 election. I think maybe 2 weeks after. He had been making a lot of radio appearances, but that's like as far as like the Rumble videos go back, that seems to be the start of it.
So let's talk about like his shtick, because all these guys have different sort of similar but different shticks. You know, Alex Jones does
Yeah.
he does the crying thing a lot, and
Well, because of his background in law enforcement, he has a very like subtle, calm tone. Like he is like a police officer approaching you, like telling you things. So the way his shtick feels more like it's derivative of Tucker Carlson, whereas Alex Jones was very derivative of Rush Limbaugh. Uh, so Peters has a very like calm, measured stance in all of this. Uh, Very rarely does he have situations where he goes off the handle. Even when he's talking about his belief that like there's an entire cabal kidnapping children, his his form of yelling still isn't that high up. It sounds more like the Stu Peters bounty hunter like giving instructions like get on the floor so I can handcuff you, like more than he does the screaming about turning frogs gay.
so he emerges before the pandemic, right? But that quickly the anti-Fauci, like what are his, is it QAnon, vaccines, and then just like new conspiracy? Is that his bread and butter, or
His bread and butter is Christian nationalism.
Okay.
He spoken at the AFPAC, the big conference that Nick Fuentes has. The easiest way to if you want to pin him down on an ideology, it is centered around like Christian nationalism, which all these overlappings with white nationalism, but centered around the idea of building a Christian nation around Christian identity. So you could have like people of color like mix in with you, and if they're also pointed towards this Christian identity, then it is working towards you. But in terms of anti-vaccine stuff, that's just hitting all the nodes right at the time he's coming up. Because if he's coming up in late 2020, he's got the perfect time to brand. That's how he's going to fit himself in.
And I remember, so basically I described that AFPAC conference, which MTG spoke at. It was basically a pro-Hitler conference. Nick Fuentes said it was a joke, but he was like praising Hitler, and his Nazi cult known as the Groypers went wild. And Stu Peters was one of the speakers, and I think, what did he call for, hanging Dr. Fauci or something?
Tony Fauci literally unleashed a bioweapon on the entire world. Why is this man still running around free instead of hanging by the end of a noose somewhere?
But Fuentes was very upset by this. And I remember on his telegram, he said, the guy isn't even red pilled on the JQ. So
well, at least in terms of like what he presents himself to be, if he presents actually watching a show a little bit, I know one of his advertisers is, I can't remember his name, but he was a New York City area rabbi who was like an anti-vaxxer.
Zev Zelenko. He died. Yeah.
Yes, he had it was. Yeah. So in that case, seeing trying to like work with the Zionist crowd. So I know when he has guests that do like believe in like these beliefs that like when we say globalists, we mean Jews type of people coming in, and they're always very measured to not go overboard and say that part. So while whether or not he actually like believes like a group of Jewish people are running things, his guests come on and they just don't say that. And I also know, like, in preparation from this, because there's a whole lot of episodes. I couldn't watch them all, but of his regular show, he had Patrick Holly, formerly of the big league politics, got forced out, but he was saying Zionists, but he wasn't saying Jews. He was trying to like refer to like these are specifically like Israeli government like lobbyists, and not like all the Jews run the banks type of things. But it was like if he goes off the show, that's how they work. So
Yeah.
I think it's because his career isn't 30 years long like Alex Jones, or even with Tucker Carlson that long. Like he hasn't quite found exactly like that sweet spot. If you know the old classic drill tweet of like having a dial that says racism and the crowd is yelling at me, is like he's trying to find that right spot of anti-Semitism where he like can work with his anti-vaxxer crowd and his Christian nationalist crowd.
So he's a little bit, he definitely tweets anti-Semitic, racist stuff. I've seen it, and he has all sorts of associations. But compared to Fuentes, he's like a little softer on the anti-Semitism, but more crazy with the insane conspiracy theory. I thought
Time's gonna make a fool out of me. Like we're gonna put this out, put it on the internet, and the subtlety is gonna be gone one day. So I'm just gonna say time makes a fool of me. He's gonna find that right spot eventually, and boy, we're gonna hate it.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be making a Holocaust denial documentary probably 5 years from now. There's a good chance.
Yeah. So speaking about those documentaries, there's been about 4 of them. Guess what? There's been a 5th one I didn't tell you about that have been released since 2022. So we're talking about in the span of 18 months, about 5 movies that are about an hour long, that in concurrence with his actual like daily TV show. So the movies are actually not made by Stu Peters. They're actually made by 2 movie directors, Matthew Skoll and Nick Stumphauser. And these guys also have very difficult to tack down like IMDb's, but I can tell you like they had been making like somewhat legitimate documentaries. I haven't seen all of those documentaries, but from like watching their trailers, been like, okay, like these don't look like you're going to get hit. Like they're not obvious like right-wing ideology stuff. Like they looked like maybe they were like pointing towards like being casually pro-life, but like not in a very overt way. There was one that was like the Children of Omo, which was about like an African tribe that does like kill children by exposing them after their birth, dying of like exposure, because like they believe like they were like cursed children. And like it would like follow like a guy coming in there and like trying to like change the ways of that tribe. And I thought like, oh, that probably like ties in with Christian nationalism, but it doesn't seem on par with like the Stu Peters stuff. So like probably like these guys like got roped into this. And the other thing is that all of these movies are produced by former Delaware senatorial candidate Lauren Witzke, who is also like a QAnon influencer, white nationalist adjacent, and very overt Christian nationalist. She's the executive producer. Just giving you a sense of like the Stu Peters movies are not just Stu Peters with a camera pointing it at people. Like this is a network. Like he sends people out to other cities to go in and get these footage, interviews, and what have you. And he also interviews those same people on his show, but like just has a much higher upscale on these movies. And I think if we get to the clips, we're gonna see like these are actually like pretty like filmed in 1080p, just meant to like really like have a good look.
Why don't we start with his rap career? So I'll give this points for honesty. This song is called, so apparently his rap name was Focus. Genius. Okay. So it's Fokiss. And this song is called I Never Made It.
You gotta hear this new specifically the ones you dial when
when you're faded at night. Drunk talk like come and see me, man, or pay for your flight. You gotta hear this new shit I'm on, the video's right. Dog, I've been talking to record labels, investors, promoters, and the future looks real bright for Focus. We're planning on shows in the tropics. I'm talking Grammys and Oscars. Half time for football and in the ring with them boxers. They're gonna know the name Stuart Peters. From the grassroots music to influence on big screens and movie theaters. I'm finally gonna live that dream. It's worth the thin times I went through to make a difference in these little kids' lives. And then the shock hit me when I opened my eyes. And now I know this whole episode I've been hypnotized.
So basically, for the listeners, in the music video, this big time music executive is trying to coerce Stu Peters into signing some kind of contract while he's rapping.
Extinguisher's been deployed. The fire inside of me is slowly burning out. Now I realize that I'm a
failure. Never made it. My family devastated. A lifetime just wasted. Bitterness has been tasted because I.
Oh my God. So the lyrics are failure, never made it. Wait, serious?
Yeah, it's
Wow.
fantastic. I really love just the cut back and forth with like the executive like pointing, like tapping on it, like yes, that's what the contract really looks like. You definitely know what it's like to sit in an office and someone's trying to get you to sign a contract. And I also want to point out, like, to drive home this Christian nationalist thing, is that both the backup singer on there, Asian American, as well as the person who directed the music video is also Asian American. But like the Minneapolis rap scene has been like notoriously like very white, from atmosphere, idea, and abilities. If I had to peg down his sound, he sounds a lot like Buck 65, who's a Canadian rapper. But just this idea of just say the caucasity of his music.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's very good. I mean, I gotta listen to the Nazi gang leader guy. What's his name? Handsome Truth. He was a failed rapper. I haven't heard his music yet. Have you heard him?
No, don't know that guy.
Yeah,
But
the GDL, the Goyim Defense League, they waved the Nazi flags outside the synagogues and stuff.
Okay. Are you familiar with Wig Nasty?
No.
Do you get? I don't want to explain how he got that name, but you understand how someone would get that name.
It's some kind of variation of Nazi, right? The Wignats.
Yeah. It's a nat, like the Nat stands for nationalists, and the W stands for white. But the guy himself was from the Bull Patrol, named after the haircut from Dylan Roof.
Oh, I know it.
And there is a song that lives rent-free in my head every day. It was a diss track to Christopher Cantwell, and it's like, Chris Cantwell, go back to Albemarle.
Oh, I think I know that one.
When I think of this entire person's catalog of raps, just one line comes to mind. So yeah. Stu Peters not up there with Wig Nasty. Nothing quite stands out like that.
So is Died Suddenly the first one he puts out?
No, it would be These Little Ones, which is more in line with QAnon, of sort of kidnapping of children, child protective services, satanic ritual sacrifice. But it seems to only be out by like months in the difference of this, because like it seems like Died Suddenly is his third movie out of all of these that have been released. Where so there's even one before all of that.
Wow. Okay, let's start with this one.
The unlimited power of Child Protective Services. I served in the Georgia State Senate, and after 4 years of viewing the ruthless and unsparing actions of Child Protective Services, I wrote a scathing report entitled The Corrupt Business of Child Protective Services. The report cost me my Senate seat. This is not to say that there are not those children in wretched situations who need to be removed. There are, and we all agree.
If you have history in your past, you know of a story of an abusive child who was saved by CPS, you can't then assume that CPS saves everybody. Who is mainly involved in CPS? Hospitals and doctors. Why? Because people trust hospitals and doctors. They shouldn't, but they do. And in the same hospital where babies are being born, the same hospital, babies are being kidnapped. In the same place where people are being cured of cancer, the same place people are being killed with remdesivir and ventilators. And people can't separate that because they see it all as one. Something's either all good or it's all bad.
All right, you ready to find out who all those people were?
Yeah.
All right, so the woman at the beginning of this is former Georgia State Senator Nancy Schaefer. She comes in right after there's all of these like footage of children being kidnapped from sort of like closed circuit television. And you can't tell like exactly where they are. They don't list these people are, and I don't even think it was that video was in the United States. But Nancy Schaefer comes in, gives that speech. After she served as a Georgia State Senator, she would go on to be the president of the Georgia Shafley Eagle Forum. You know, like Phyllis Schlafly, like the anti-feminist organization. She claims like the reason why she lost her seat was because of how opposed she was to Child Protective Services. That's a big speech she gives. And later in the movie, we find out that she had been murdered by her husband in a murder-suicide. Of course, this is going to go on and paint this as conspiratory, that she wasn't actually murdered by her husband. It's all a big cover-up. But as far as the Georgia police put it, they could never find a motive for the murder of why her husband would want to kill her and himself. So this creates this sort of conspiracy. And just to put a date on that, that murder suicide was back in 2010.
I remember listening to Alex Jones talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, the Diego Rodriguez is the second person you heard on there. And yeah, in coming across, learning about him, I unstumbled way too much information. He lives out in Idaho. He was the one that reached out to Stu Peters for this. And if we go to all of these movies, if we think of all of these movies not as a form of entertainment, but instead sort of a way to funnel people into either an ideology, a product, a service. You got Diego Rodriguez, who's working with Amon Bundy. They are both subject of a defamation lawsuit that was just decided that at $52.5 million. And that was to this hospital, the St. Luke's Hospital Network. Rodriguez was put on for $13.5 million. And during the trial, him and Bundy were no-shows. So if you think of like the defamation lawsuit, and again, like this is actually sending from something that was involved in this movie. The harassment begins on March of 2022 and is found to be like a no-show for all this in the trial, like a year and some change later. So moving really fast of just like absolutely not even trying to get involved in this lawsuit. But all of this stems from Diego Rodriguez's grandson being taken to custody from Child Protective Services. The grandson in question was brought into the hospital for something that seems very, very routine, like kid throwing up, having trouble like taking solid foods when you're switching over from breastfeeding to solid foods. And you know, CPS sort of intervenes when the family does not want to participate in a weigh-in to make sure that their kid is healthy. So they miss that weigh-in. They put a bolo. They arrest them, and this is all like they like get the footage from Child Protective Services, from Idaho police, like arresting him, and put that in their own movie. Boy, I don't want to show you like video of a 10-month-old like being taken by police, but that is what's in the movie. And I also want to say like CPS has its faults because like I can tell you like here in Virginia, there was a situation where there was a mother whose child was born, had serious health problems related to like that were not like parental abuse, that made that child like severely overweight, and like CPS like wanted to put criminal charges on that mother. And like there is like very good critiques of child protective services that I'm just going to glance over here because like the movie instead is trying to say that it is a satanic ritual of abuse. And with that in mind, I want you to play up our next clip here because we're going to switch over to like how this is going from like an Idaho hospital network taking one different child to satanic ritual abuse.
In order to understand this present darkness, of course we had to uncover its origins in the past. There was no other man more qualified than biblical archaeologist Henry B. Smith Jr. of the Associates for Biblical Research.
Archaeology is a tool that can be used properly and carefully as an apologetic resource, as an educational resource, as a biblical resource to help people understand that what we find in Holy Scripture are not stories, they're not myths. These are actual events that took place in time and space. And the sovereign God who reveals himself in Scripture has preserved these things in Scripture for us to understand human history, to understand our need for salvation, that we have a sin problem, a very wretched and deep one, that needs a redeemer. Jesus warns his hearers, and he uses this very powerful picture of putting a millstone around the neck of someone being tossed into the sea.
It would be better for them to be thrown into the sea with a millstone tied around their neck than to cause one of these little ones to stumble. So watch yourselves.
Unfortunately, in history and even in the modern day, that children are attacked, abused, and in many cases even kidnapped and murdered.
All right, sometimes even kidnapped and murdered. So that guy right there was Henry B. Smith. He has a little internet show called Digging for Truth, an archaeology show that uses the belief of young Earth instead of, conventional archaeology belief. He's really like a counter to all of that. But he is not an archaeologist. He has his original undergrad degree from Rutgers in economy. He would go on to have a master's in theology from Trinity Seminary in Indiana. And he claims to have been converted to all of this because of creationism. But he just used this sort of pseudoscience. And in there was that mention to Luke 17:2 about the millstone that is very often used in a lot of these like Christian nationalist talking points boy, I think the next clip he's going to like bring up Moloch, which is mentioned in like the Bible, but using Moloch as sort of this sacrifice. And if people are familiar with Alex Jones as well as like the Bohemian Grove saga, is that believing that all of these globalists pray to Moloch and have their sacrifices to them.
The cremation of care with the Cronkite, the classic video of John Ronson, the British writer, who's actually quite good, I think. And Alex Jones sneaking into Bohemian Grove,
and there's also a lot of just like jumping around with Stu Peters sort of narrating, talking about like Planned Parenthood as if like they're sacrificing things, and then a very short tangent. They get into the 1982 LA fetal disposal scandal, where like a large amount of like fetuses that were supposed to be disposed were just found in a shipping container, and having to do with like the fact that like after they had been like legal abortion services or stillbirths, they couldn't find anybody to like incinerate them all, and so they just kind of like sat in the shipping container until like a cruise found that. But just like, using that situation, jumping around to the 2014 Acorn like sting operation where they, go around and says, we got these guys saying that Planned Parenthood is selling baby parts.
James O'Keefe, the origin of Project Veritas is James O'Keefe dressing up the pimp. Yeah.
And let's see, there's also, and then they jump to this conclusion that they're using all of this money of child sacrifice, and that's what Moloch is using for all of its funding. So,
Moloch is bankrolled by abortion, basically.
Yes.
Right.
That's you're understanding this movie now.
Right.
One of the first passages that we see in the Old Testament is both in Leviticus 18 and 20, and it refers to what seems strange to the modern reader at first glance, is the practice of child sacrifice. Particularly, we have mentioned in these passages where God is giving absolute commands to the Israelites not to participate in the sacrifice of their children, to give them over to Molech.
Yep. It really is. It's just that straightforward. You have a creationist coming in here talking about there is child sacrifice to Moloch, and the Bible's the proof of it. And that's all we're going to see from Henry B. Smith. He seems to really only be a side character in this show. And we're going to now take a travel all the way to Atlanta, Georgia, where we're going to meet Brandy Brassel, who, according to another documentary I watched, she had been addicted to meth for 5 years, and got clean and started working in the services of helping other people in crisis management, part of the Warrior Bride Church. But interestingly enough, in like all of these like past interviews I've seen her give, there had been no mention of Satan. In fact, she's still a member of this congregation, this group, but there's no focus on childhood sexual exploitation. Well, actually, there is a focus on that of abuse and what have you, but there's no mention of like this specialization of satanic ritual abuse. But that's going to come up here in just a second.
Okay, let's check her out.
My name is Brandy Brassel. I work with Warrior Bride Ministries. We are a ministry that we minister inner healing and deliverance, but we specialize in some of the most traumatized survivors of satanic ritual abuse and human trafficking. I think that satanic ritual abuse is a lot greater and a bigger problem than most realize, and probably even myself is submersed in it as I am. Every neighborhood with 250 homes in it, 14 had satanic ritual abuse taking place.
Okay, I gotta stop it there. Can you?
Yeah, I can hear that. Yeah, her claiming of how widespread it is that even her, as this person who works in there, can't even tell you how bad it is. It's unmeasurable. Coming up with like any neighborhood with 250 houses, there's satanic ritual abuse happening in there.
And while for the listeners, while she's saying this, they have this drone shot of this cookie cutter suburb, but it's like there's 14 Satanists, doing their childish abuse right down there. It's wow. Those are some numbers. Wow. So
there is a continuation of this. Try to give it credence. There is a 60 Minutes Australia from 1989. A total shift over here. In order to get this credence, you're showing something else. It's not just Crazy Stu Peters' world. Let's go to 60 Minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Australia, though. But
right.
They had a 15-year-old who, as far as I can tell, like what the actual facts here are, she had been a victim of like childhood abuse. But the way how like this sensationalized in 1989 and the Satanic Panic, turning it into satanic ritual abuse. The 60 Minutes like has like this, this traumatized like teenager telling all of these stories. One of which like claims that she had, I think, 7 or 8 children that she gave up for like ritual sacrifice while she had been abducted. And 60 Minutes brings in a satanic expert who is a British criminologist by the name of Ray Wire, who in all actuality is just a former probation officer who ran a clinic for sex offenders. But he's using like this satanic ritual abuse in like 1989. And his proof that he seems to like give credence is that all the victims talk about being stored in a wooden box, like a coffin or something like that, and then put in the coffin with bugs. And the one thing I found I was like, what does this sound like? And I thought, oh, the movie Indiana Jones Temple of Doom. All the victims probably had recently watched that and said, oh, I experienced this. But like the truth about like experiencing like something very traumatic, like people, one, aren't going to be very reliable on like the traumatic experience they had. And these satanic ritual abuse experts, like in these 80s, are really just like pointing people to something that so they can go ahead and say that. Like think of Jim Stewartson. It's not reliable experts that seem to have like this big light, including like having this piece in 60 Minutes. So there's also this insider, the satanic ritual abuse insider from Atlanta, Georgia, that Brandy Brissell brings out and speaks to the movie about all of this insider information. Go ahead, play it. I dare you.
We had a client come in that his grandmother had brought him in. He was, from what I understand, fairly high up in ranking in a satanic, I guess, congregation or coven. And he talked about killings and murders and rituals that he had experienced and an army. He spoke of it like it was an army, because it is. The enemy is after our children at whatever cost and whatever avenue he can get to them at.
I'm a satanic ritual abuse survivor. The Christian church says all the time that they fight an enemy, but I don't think they're aware of how organized and strategic the enemy that they're fighting is. That there is an intentional plan to break their children. An entire war for their offspring. People don't understand how organized it is. There's a satanic calendar. Grand climaxes happen 4 times a year. Those are major festivals. Think of your Christmas, your Easter, big holidays. We're talking major rituals, the September marriage to the beast ceremony. And if you look at the dates, the majority of kidnappings in the United States happen a week before, because there's a preparation. Each satanic holiday requires a specific sacrifice, whether it be blood or sex or an animal, newborn babies, whatever they needed for blood. 1/6 of Georgia has 37 covens. 37 covens. 4 grand climaxes a year that require the sacrifice of a child or a woman. That's a lot of people.
Where do the kids come from, the majority that are used for this?
People don't want to know that answer. I totally believe that the majority of the government is either involved, covering it up, or has intentionally put blinders up so that they don't have to deal with it. 4 years ago, Brian Kemp's wife told you that the state of Georgia lost 3,600 kids to trafficking. Where'd they go? If each coven, all 37 of them, need to sacrifice 4 times a year minimal, that accounts for a good chunk of them, doesn't it?
What is it that they do not want uncovered that is leading to this body count?
Who's involved? You want me to die?
You know, I just gotta say, I'm a little triggered as a generational Satanist myself to hear these kind of lies because, my entire life, the marriage of the beast ceremony, we've been doing animals. We don't do kids. And so no, I'm kidding, but just the real facts. The Pew Research Center says that there are 200,000 Satanists, so about 0.06% of the population. Anyways, I gotta say the filmmaking quality, it's pretty good. Like as far as the music and the sort of they're not showing this person's face and they got the window silhouette. Yeah,
the modulated voice a little hard to hear on my end, and I'm the one that cut the clip. But the idea there is, this expert they have come in here, absolute terrified, and really just like seeing like, do you want me to die? Like, especially like when the expert is like leading, like nobody wants to say who's involved, and then like is a leading question. You have that was one of the directors, Matthew Skull, that you saw looking at the video, ask him that, and it was like, do you want me to die? Like never revealing actually who it is. But eventually, like later in this, she gets into Marty Kemp, the wife of Georgia Governor Brian Kemp. Also, before we go on, 1/6 of Georgia has 37 covens. They need at least 4 sacrifices a year, and that's only a 6. So just saying that there's hundreds of sacrifices. But so she comes up with this number of Marty Kemp saying that 3,600 children were victims of sex trafficking in a year. I don't remember the year that she said that, but like coming up with a specific number that was put on by a Georgia official.
I'll be honest with you, Goat. In where I live, we have 2 covens. We have the Reform coven. They're a little more liberal, and then we have the Orthodox coven. So,
Well, maybe you just don't realize that they're all secretly hiding, and the government is either covering it up or involved.
That's a lot of coven.
So these are victims of sex trafficking, not abductees. So when we talk about children who have been sex trafficked, that doesn't mean that they're missing from. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're missing from their family. Like it's actually not that uncommon for like family members to be involved in the sex trafficking. So it isn't 3,600 kids that are just gone missing and are involved in sex trade. It's that there were 3,600 children that were identified to be involved in that, which is entirely different in that. So the way how this movie is phrasing it is that there are 3,600 kids that are missing. We don't know where they went. We have this like person who won't come forward, or who's coming forward but under like anonymous circumstances, and being like, I can tell you like they're being sacrificed. I used to be a high up in these organizations. If I could tell you any more, like they're going to send somebody after to kill me. And that's how they make this movie. So when you think of Stu Peters, that's who he is. Now, prepare yourself for an absolute neck-breaking change of pace right here.
Before that, because I'm so bad at math, I'm still confused. So she says 1/6 of Georgia has 36 covens.
Yes.
Why is she making me do a math equation? Why doesn't she just tell me like there are 300 covens or something?
Well, if you did the math, then you would be like, well, that's
ridiculous.
That's a number. That's a physical number I can track. If you say like more of a casual number, instead of saying like about 3,600 go missing every year for the sacrifice, you just say it could be this number and that much. It's just giving yourself a lot of flexibility.
There are. Do you know how many counties there are in Georgia, by the way?
No, I don't know.
There's 100. There's 159 counties in Georgia. So,
all right.
So what's the math there? So Somebody
You're
up there can.
doing more math than Stu Peters ever did.
Yeah. Hundreds of covens just in Georgia. Wow. All right, the next clip. Let's go.
It's insurmountable. I feel like everyone knows he's involved.
Hello, guys. Something special is happening here. That's right. It's brackets and jackets. Bringing it back for brackets and jackets. Special Epstein Island edition.
All right.
Isaac.
Were you prepared for that change of just like evil, ominous, like satanic, like whistleblower, and then Isaac Cappy?
Nice J cut transition. These people know how video is. Yeah. No.
I also so part of this is like who's involved, and then just a cut to Isaac Cappy, who we'll get over here in a minute. Which when I first thought of it, I didn't register who he was. I thought like, is he the one involved? He's talking about brackets and jackets, Epstein Island. Is this the sex trafficker?
Yeah.
But that is Isaac Cappy, who is a QAnon believer.
He's dead now.
He is dead. Way to spoil the ending here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's gonna get really fucked up here. Isaac Cappy, QAnon believer, struggling actor, ex-friend with Seth Green. They had a falling out, and Isaac Cappy accused him of being a pedophile, saying that he had like these secret chambers in his child bedroom, and like Seth Green just like secretly turned to him and it was like, "This is where we keep the babies." And so Isaac Cappy has like this very like large, over the top, like he's a struggling actor. Just this idea here. There's another guy, like, because he's dead by the time this movie comes out, he's not giving the interview. Instead, it's like other people that have known him, like, talk about him. Like one person says like they saw him on InfoWars, but like saying that is a positive, like, ooh, he was so informed. He was talking about Epstein on InfoWars. But like the reality here is that he's a man who's completely out of touch with reality. He's really just been cut off by the people around him, whether it be like Los Angeles actors, like these whistleblowers that go all the way to DC. But at the same time, like there's like videos of him in his house just being like, I'm all by myself. I got nobody to talk to. They talk about like, oh, he's a Hollywood actor. There's a cut of him like as an extra in Thor, but he actually has like sort of like a QAnon like Telegram channel that like he's pulling people in. And he's starting to make like these videos where he talks about like, oh, I'm not suicidal, but at the same time, like he's talking about all these people that are coming after him. And there is another person, they never say her full name, so they only give like a first name. I don't even remember her first name, so I can't look her up. But she is like a trained masseuse and talks about like how she finds like these, not like a big bump on the back of his head. And I thought I was prepared for what was going to be happening in this, and I just wasn't. So she tells a story about like the last time she had ever been around Isaac Cappy.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm ready for this.
Out in Apple Valley where he lived, it was reasonable for there to be sudden weather changes. And we were out on the back. He was smoking and these clouds rolled in and it got dark nearly immediately. And he said, there's a storm coming to me. I said, yeah, why don't we come inside? It looks like it's gonna rain. And so we came inside and he said, let's go get tacos.
Tacos!
And as we made this left up the street, there were some old buildings and there was nothing going on. My radio wasn't on, it was quiet in the car because we were talking. And all of a sudden, there was this sound of music in my bones, in my head, in my body, and we both jumped.
That's when you know you're on the
As Phil Collins song, In the Air Tonight. And it was the lyrics, can you feel it coming? And the music stopped as soon as we got into the parking lot. I was trying to turn my radio off. The radio was not. It turned on when I pushed it.
Holy shit. So
Yeah,
they were both hearing that.
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
She would go on to talk about like sort of like radio waves had been like targeting him. And so like she then becomes like a believer that like he's being targeted by like sort of like these deep state, like secretive forces, and like all of these headaches he's been having, like he's been hitting his head on the wall out of like frustration because of this. And like in reality, like we know like this is like the signs of like somebody who's unwell, but like she is explicitly saying like it's radio weapons that are like are affecting his mind. And it was really in poor taste. I didn't cut this, but so as you pointed out, he had died. He about a day after this event in question, where they go and get tacos, Isaac Cappy drives out to Arizona and he jumps off of a bridge into oncoming traffic and commits suicide. The movie makers go out and they get the police footage, including footage of him like being passed by a police cruiser on a bridge, the gore from the scene of the incident, and you thought playing Genesis was so fucking crazy. They play Harvey Danger, flagpole set up. I'm not sick. I'm not well. I'm paranoid. Everybody's coming to get me, like to the footage of his suicide. And they're like, and then they show like clips of like other people that like they claim have been suicided, whether it be like Seth Rich. I didn't write them all down, but it was just like a bunch of like conspiratorial mind. If you think of like the Clinton body count, sort of like saying that Isaac Cappy had been like killed by the Clintons is sort of like what they were suggesting. And then all of a sudden the movie ends. Stu Peters is interviewing Diego Rodriguez and his family. His daughter and son-in-law come in with their baby, and they're like, "We just got off the phone with the lawyer. They're dropping all the charges." Stu Peters is like, "I believe in miracles," and that's the end of the movie.
Well, I gotta admit, I don't want to make light of the death, but just to back up to them hearing the Phil Collins song, "You Can Feel It in the Air Tonight." You do have to admit, though, if they were trying to do that, that would be the perfect song. I can feel it in the air tonight, right? I mean,
I cannot confirm or deny what would be the best weapon to use or the best song to use. I would have used the CIA heart attack gun, but I guess I'm just built differently. So yeah, so that's These Little Ones, and that was the only movie I took a lot of time looking into because of the just all over the place. As you can see, like it just jumps around, but it kind of like moves towards one idea. The other movie, which is not going to spend too much time on, is Watch the Water. And that's got to be the stupidest of all of the movie.
This one.
This one is, I'm going to put quotations, Dr. Brian Artis is sort of the main guy. And actually, the entire movie is just an interview with Stu Peters and Brian Artis with like effects going over that. But if you look them up, like the first thing you'll see is a complaint from the Tennessee Board of Chiropractors from 2008. That is not a good sign when the first thing you look up is a complaint from a medical board.
That is a Satanist-controlled board, okay? And we all know that.
He failed to maintain his continuing education credits, which is why I'm putting doctor in quotation. Also, he's a chiropractor.
They're always What is with this loophole where the chiropractors get to say they're doctors? That is the greatest loophole. I've ever.
So this movie, the first clip I'm going to give you here, it's going to be the point of like, what's the point of fact checking this? If his claim here is they're putting snake venom in the water. That's the plot of the movie here. They're putting snake venom in the water. You think COVID is real? It's not actually real. People are suffering all of these symptoms from snake venom that is put in the water. So why don't we hear from the good doctor here?
Let me ask you a question. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you believe the mass media is controlled?
Of course.
You actually do believe that?
Yes.
So you believe that whatever's being pumped out in the media is being orchestrated and controlled?
Of course.
Like across all of it?
Across all of it.
Okay, good. All right, so in my head, I was like, okay, how do they keep people on that story? So there's this mass media group who are telling a huge story. They're all telling the same story around the world. Whenever anybody says anything against that narrative, what do they use now to combat that in the mainstream media?
Disinformation.
Yeah, they call them fact checkers.
Yeah, fact checkers, yeah.
Fact checking is the opposite of fact checking.
The arbiters of lies are the fact checkers.
By definition, fact checkers are to divert you from truth and take you back to...
Yeah, by definition, I mean, everyone knows that. By definition, yeah.
To a narrative
but
being sold.
What were you going to say?
Oh, yeah, like it doesn't have to be like, that's the entire point right here, is that this is an audience that has found its mark. If you've made it yourself this far into the movie, and I think this is like probably like 15 minutes in, if you heard the Cobra Venom, you didn't laugh and turn it off, you're a mark. Congratulations. Brian Artis is probably going to find a way to make money from you after this movie. The reason why, like, hey, do you think all fact checking is false? Yeah, of course. All of it? Yes, all of it. Okay, great. Let's just move on. The entire idea right here is that he's got like people sucked up into this. And you know what? I would like to put on a fact checking site right here. Is Brian Artis dead? Fact check. Actually, he's still alive. By definition, Brian Artis would have to admit that, like, if like made a factcheck.org that he's dead, or that he's not dead, then he has to admit that he's dead. It's just that simple. But why don't we get into how he came to the conclusion that it was snake venom?
And we should also say, for the people who can't see it, while he's asking these questions, he's like smiling, laughing. So it's like, listen, you're not dummy, you get it. Fact checkers are liars. So let's continue here.
And they call them fact checkers.
Yeah, fact checkers, yeah.
Fact checking is the opposite of fact checking.
The arbiters of lies are the fact checkers.
By definition, fact checkers are to divert you from truth and take you back to a narrative you're being sold worldwide.
Right.
If it's true that COVID could actually be snake venom, and how I got there was they don't support the use of antivenom called monoclonal antibodies,
right,
because they work. The easiest way to figure that out is, has that ever been fact-checked? And I wanted to know, was there ever any mention that the source could have been a snake?
And?
Oh my God.
Oh my.
Oh my. Yeah. So this is a very serious doctor right here. He just found that, at the time, in the very early stages of COVID, it was tossed out like the three theories: coming from a bat, coming from a snake, or coming from a penguin, like a reptile creature. But like they were able to eliminate the idea that like it could not have come from a snake for various medical reasons. I'm not a scientist, but so they came back and like they did a fact check on like, no, it didn't come from a snake. We know this now. A lot of people thought it was, so disregard that. That's actually how science works. You come up with a theory and then you later disprove it, and then you have somebody go in and tell people it was disproven. But to him, that is just oppositional defiance right there, and proving it is. So
I gotta tell you, Goad, when he said, "Could the source be a snake?" my mind jumped to like some snake guy in a suit donating green snake blood to something. But
and enough venom to poison the entire country's water supply.
A snake.
So what if I told you there was 2 Watch the Water movies?
Ooh.
Yes, they made a sequel to it. They brought Brian Artis back in. This time they're in a less it looks just like they're in a garage, like an unfinished building behind a garage door that has like glass so you can see the road. It's as if they could not get the same respect to do the set. They couldn't find a place to film the second one, so they just did a garage. Yeah, so Watch the Water 2. Okay. Everybody hates Watch the Water, and I'm not just saying like you and me and our listeners right here are like, oh, this is stupid. Like even other like anti-vax crowds want nothing to do with this, but Stu Peters doesn't back off. And I think this is like a really defining thing about Stu Peters. When he has a dumbass opinion, he's going to see this to the end of the earth. So he makes Watch the Water 2, and he steps on some people in the process of making this. So why don't we play the only clip I have from Watch the Water 2?
I love it. Okay.
I gotta ask, if this has been published, peer-reviewed, if from the very beginning they've been saying this is what this is, why do we have quote-unquote trusted experts, the self-proclaimed inventor of mRNA technology, Dr. Robert Malone? Why do we have Dr. Peter McCullough, the chief scientist at the Wellness Company? Why do we have Dr. Pierre Corey? Why do we have Dr. Paul Merrick? Why do we have all these doctors, trusted experts saying, protect yourself from a respiratory virus? This is what you need to do. Why do they not subscribe to the Brian Artis truth that this is envenomation? Why?
It's been very odd to me. What is the why? It's interesting because they refuse to talk to me about their why. They won't meet with me, talk with me. They avoid the actual presentations on stages. Wait a minute.
The people that I just named specifically avoid you.
Oh, yeah.
But don't you share a stage with them? I mean,
they often will excuse themselves from the events when they find out I'm speaking, since Watch the Water drop.
I gotta tell you, I really am liking this chiropractor doctor. I love the like smile he always has on his face.
He got into the wrong business. It's also funny, like this is not a snake oil salesman. This is a snake venom storyteller. It's so all those doctors he mentioned, Dr. McCullough, who is an anti-vaxxer, he's currently going on telling people Jamie Foxx died of actually for a while he said that they faked his death but had to adjust his story. But like having these stories about Jamie Foxx have a vaccine injury that's absolutely unconfirmed. Robert Malone, he's gone on Rogan. He's the mass formation psychosis, claims to have invented mRNA, also an anti-vaxxer. You have these 2 guys from they mentioned from the FLCCC. They're the 2 biggest ivermectin, Dr. Merrick and Corey. Like these are people that say we want nothing to do with this Watch the Water chiropractor guy. Like this guy is embarrassing us. We are like even Artis is saying like these guys just walk away from me like they don't like that's what you're just going to come out and say like and you're going to make a second movie about this, about just stepping on like these same guys that are from your own sphere. So like Stu Peters is finding a very niche market. And also I'm looking forward to whenever Watch the Water 3 drops, because I think we can all agree like Brian Artis, superstar right here, figure something out.
Counting down the days personally, and let's just admit it that Robert Malone, Peter McCullough, these guys have been bought off by Big Snake for years. We've all known that in the community. And they just fear the truth.
I also wanted to point out Watch the Water 2 is now about how there is venom also in the shots.
So okay. Yeah, let's get into I love this theory. Okay. I need to, because we had to do math before and that was difficult. So now I need to go even slower with this. So he's saying that, because I thought it was more crazy actually initially. He's saying that there was a virus that did come from Wuhan, from the market, but it was a snake. Is that correct?
That would be only if you look up the fact checkers. What happened here is he's saying is that all of these previous claims about COVID are wrong. What they're really doing is putting snake venom in the water. It's not that it came from a snake. It's that there is snake venom in water.
So the places that fluoridate the water, they said, making the masses into these chumps with the fluoride isn't cutting it. Let's bring in the snake venom.
Yep.
So what's the goal there?
The goal is to get people to go into a hospital and get the vaccine, which has more snake venom in it, because and this was also mentioned in Watch the Water too, is that like all even like these anti-vax doctors are like, you're being absurd. You can't just like ingest snake venom. Like your body will like dissolve it before it can get into your bloodstream. And he just dismisses that and like references like a type of pill or like some type of medication that is like derived from venom that like that does like get absorbed by the bloodstream because it's a pill, not venom in water. But like even like other doctors like within his own sphere are like telling him like, you're wrong, dude. Like you don't know medicine. Like you're a chiropractor. Shut up, dude. And he's just going along his way. He's made up his mind and he doesn't care like what anybody tells him, because those are just fact checkers. If Dr. Robert Malone fact checks you, well, guess what? Dr. Robert Malone is wrong.
It's a great strategy. So it's like anytime anybody says you're wrong, they're fact checking you, which means by definition, what they're saying you're wrong about is actually right because they're fact checkers. So that's brilliant to me. And so I assume the goal is to kill, is it the global culling? Is that the end goal he believes?
Geez. I don't know what is his final. I guess that is his thing, saying that like a bunch of people are going to die as a result of that. And I think if we get into died suddenly, these two concepts don't disagree. If we get into final days, we are going to get into actually in final days they have the same idea here, but there's going to be the final days does not agree with the Stu Peters cinematic universe. But died suddenly fits into it of sort of like just killing off a lot of people, giving people a whole bunch of like medical conditions as a result of having venom in their body.
Before we move on, I just want to say on this global coal conspiracy theory, it's a real far right conspiracy classic. I mean, LaRouche was really into it. Alex Jones was really into it. And I was just actually thinking about this yesterday, because I don't know if you remember. Do you remember that famous Alex Jones clip from like 2010 where he's like talking about how Bill Gates is going to use vaccines in Africa to like cull the population? He's like, roll up the sleeves, African children. How do you like it? Death from gut disease.
Bill Gates up there with that little chicken neck, hopping her now, little murdering eugenicist. You know how he walks like a demonic elf. Hey, Bill Gates, I'm gonna shoot you up with something that's gonna kill you down in the hammer. How's a 30-year death from gut disease sound, African children? Roll up the sleeves. I'm a little chicken neck bastard, and nobody's got the will to see what I am.
Do you remember that clip?
I don't know that clip. I thought you were going to chemicals in the water turning frogs gay.
Well, it's a classic, but the whole thing of the Gates vaccines, which were being deployed in Africa, were designed to just kill off, decimate the African population. So I looked up the population numbers since that clip in 2010, I believe.
So there's no, but it's all wiped out, right?
Africa's population has gone up by 20%. So, man, Bill Gates really, he really fucked that
Well,
one up.
if you pay attention to Alex Jones, the globalists are 10 years behind.
Yeah.
All right. So you want to get into Died Suddenly now? We're
This
up
is the
to
classic. So this is sort of like the big blockbuster hit for these people was a Plandemic.
yeah.
And then this was sort of like also really huge after that, right? This is like the second.
Yeah. Well, there's actually 3 Plandemic movies. The first one was more like Watch the Water. It was an interview with Judy Mikovits, who claims to like be this whistleblower. I don't want to get into Judy Mikovits today. She's terrible. And then the third Plandemic movie, which had a big theatrical release, and like a lot of people in Austin of all places, had like all these people like come out for like the premiere screening of it. Maybe one day I'll get into Plandemic 3 because that is a movie going places. It is weird as hell. But for Died Suddenly, like this is a big hit, not theatrically released like Plandemic or 2000 Mules, but it's free to download like all of these movies are. And I mean, what I will say about this, like when something is free, you know, you're like you want everybody to go out and see this movie. Here's a link. We can put it on the X site now. Watch the full thing. Where versus like Sound of Freedom, everybody says like, oh, you got to go out and watch Sound of Freedom and like learn about all these things. But you have to watch it in a theater. We can't just like let you see it at your home at your own convenience. So Died Suddenly, it's part of the same thing of like making it very viral on how it is, and especially like the trailer itself, because more people are going to see the trailer than actually like sit down and watch like this hour-plus movie. Even though like they did a marvelous job making this one, even though like boy did they get a lot of facts wrong, but those are just the fact checkers here. Died Suddenly goes viral because of just like anytime maybe somebody like passes out on a stage. There's like an instance of a comedian. She passes out on a stage, and that's used in part of this trailer footage. There's a basketball player who suffers a heart attack on a basketball court, a Florida State player. His heart attack is not only like not vaccine related because he got his heart attack before the vaccine was available, but also he's very much alive. So does not quite fit into this Died Suddenly, but you have like all of these like videos of people like maybe suffering a heart attack, stroke, not necessarily even before vaccines are available, but you just have this visceral image of like somebody just suddenly collapsing, falling, perhaps to their death. And that just seems to be very, very visceral into pulling people in, because every and as well as so many news articles Died Suddenly, which you know, prior to all of this, Died Suddenly is kind of just like a euphemism. Like you don't want to say somebody maybe died of suicide or it's drug related out of respect, so you just like politely say it, you know, they died suddenly. And so that's our movie right here, and our main character for this is a man by the name of Richard Hirschman. And Daniel, what do you think Richard Hirschman does as a profession?
He is a Reiki healer.
No. That would be somebody who might know something about a living person's body. Hirschman is a funeral director and embalmer. He specializes in preparing deceased bodies for funerals. So typically like that process involves draining blood out, putting in embalming fluid. And in doing so, he starts to discover something quite unusual in people's bodies. In their veins, he can't quite get the blood out. The blood has this weird clot that he has not been able to identify. He talks to other embalmers, and they've just never seen anything like this. So why don't we get into the very first scene here of Died Suddenly? And I'm sure will just be amazed. Like this is another movie, like the cinematography knocked it out of the park.
Well, before I play it, I just gotta say, to be fair to Stu Peters, okay, some of these videos of people collapsing might have been from 2017, but have you ever heard the phrase missing the forest for the trees, sir? Okay, just
All right. By the way, unlike these other movies, I did go to a fact checker and got information. So as we play things, I will tell you what the fact checkers say here.
Okay. All right, we gotta hear the last. All right, let's go. Is this a fake, or did they just did they record this and just try to make it sound like a radio recording?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if that was done in-house or they cut it from somebody else. This movie does have a lot of cuts from a lot of other news programs, just sort of like person dies suddenly, just as well as just like news clips. But that news interview, that sort of radio voice, I don't know if that's them.
Sounds totally scripted to me. Yeah, but
reported an overwhelming and unexplainable increase in all-cause deaths among 18 to 49-year-olds. Along with that, there's also been an increase in certain medical diagnoses, such as miscarriages and Bell's palsy.
Well, when I first started seeing these strange anomalies in the blood, it's just there's something different about the blood. All of these people that were dying, doesn't matter what they died of, they were having this unique, there's this unique change in the blood. I feel as though I am seeing something that could be causing their death. No one will see what I see. So in the very beginning, I'm thinking, okay, so COVID could have caused this possibly, but now I'm seeing these in people that supposedly never had COVID. And then you find out they were vaccinated. And so it's like, okay, so it's the vaccine might be causing this.
Is this original music? Because if it is,
it is original music.
That's pretty good. Wow.
It's top tier stuff. You know about Endgame, like the sort of the violin from Endgame.
Yeah.
It really is that up there in terms of soundtrack here. That
violin, that shit, that's some lame. This is better than that, but
those are fighting words.
Those are fighting words, but it is a classic. Anyway.
All right, so I told you about Richard Hirschman, embalmer. He originally thought maybe it was COVID. Maybe that's why all causes of death, not just 18 to 49 are up. All causes of death are going up. So he just assumes, like every other person in the world who knows how to read a chart, maybe people who have COVID have long-term problems. But then he says, no, all these people I'm not a doctor for never got COVID. How does him as a embalmer even have access to their medical records to tell if they've ever had COVID or not? So then he just figures out that they've all gotten vaccinated, so that's their cause of death. That's what they all have in common.
I'm seeing a pattern here. It's like sort of these guys in fields that are tangentially related to doctors, and they just like have this deep resentment that like, oh, I don't get treated like a surgeon. I'm just a chiropractor. I'm just an embalmer. I don't get any respect, That's sort of their revenge.
I guess so.
Can't wait. Okay.
Back around November of last year, of 2021, people were asking me, well, how many people are having these strange clots? And I didn't have a very good answer for it. So starting in November, I started making notations of whether or not the person was clotted or not, or vaccinated. My green is people that have been verified or vaccinated. Yellow
those are
typically
two
is somebody
very
that
different
has smaller
things, but
clots,
just I
and
just
the
want to
orange
note
is
that.
somebody that had more
So
significant
typically
clots, the
is
clots
somebody
that
that
are
has smaller
really kind of
clots,
concerning
and
to
the
me.
orange is somebody that had more significant clots. The clots that are really kind of concerning to me.
All right, you did a good job in pointing out the flaws of his scientific study there. His very scientific study. He had a MS Office spreadsheet right there, and if you look really closely, there was like only like 7 green, which really just kind of meant like only like 7 people he could confirm had a COVID shot. That really, I don't know what he's doing there. But if you saw the beginning of that, and obviously since we're in audio form, couldn't show that he had these vitals. He is displaying these vitals of clots that he had collected from people's body. And I can only assume that he did not get anyone's permission in displaying like part of their body in this movie. So the movie goes on. There's all these different embalmers talk about encountering these strange anomalies of like these clots that they find in people's, just taking up the entire vein. Some of them identify themselves, some are anonymous. But let's get into some clot shotting facts. So do you know that there was a vaccine that led to blood clotting? You know about that, right?
No.
Yeah, the Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
That was pulled, but you know the rate of how many blood clots there were?
No.
4 cases per million in the vaccine. All right. And that was only the vaccine that was 3% of the total. And interesting to note that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is not an mRNA vaccine. It uses traditional vaccine instead of the mRNA technology. So factcheck.org reached out to Richard Hirschman regarding the movie Died Suddenly. And I quote, he said, "I'm not a doctor nor a scientist. I never said I was." So factcheck.org put out a lovely article where I got to learn all about this. They also reached out to Dr. Eric Burnett of Columbia University. He also made a TikTok out there. I didn't pull that, but it's pretty obvious here. He said that by just looking at the blood clots from the movie, they look like very common post-mortem clots. And of course, they also reached out to another doctor, or actually not a doctor, but somebody who's also in the funeral embalmer world, because let's not all embalmers. Monica Torres of NXT Generation Mortuary Support was clearly believes that this is a result of refrigeration. You put a dead body in a refrigeration for so long, the blood is sort of going to form a very solid state, looking kind of like calamari, like they describe in the movie. That's right, like some squids. And of course, this matches up. There's so many excess deaths because of COVID that they're unable to process all these bodies, get them to funeral directors. All of these embalmers are just so overbooked. And now all of a sudden, they're looking at an over-refrigerated body for the first time in their careers, and just making assumptions instead of trying to reach out to experts that can explain it.
So, and I love the idea that average people should be experts in what blood looks like, or what it. But if I showed you somebody's spleen, I'm look at what they did to the spleen. It's you'd have no idea it was a normal spleen.
Most people don't want to know what's in the vaccines. In fact, nobody wants to know what's in the vaccines because nobody in Congress is asking to analyze the vials. Nobody in the mainstream media has ever asked what's in the vials. And the public doesn't want to know either because the public's not.
Is this Stevie? Is this Steve Kerr?
Yeah, I'm glad you caught him.
Recognize him. Okay, this is a better angle for him. He takes those straightforward shots, but they're he's looking good here. Yeah,
these vaccines. If people understood what was in the vaccine, they'd go apeshit.
There you go, Stevie Kirsch. So I'm glad you already know who he is. He invented the optical mouse, the thing that just died on you. He invented the website InfoSeek and sold it to Disney, which turned into Go.com, which turned into nothing. And he's saying nobody is asking what's in these vials, except, of course, for Dr. Brian Ardis, who knows it's snake venom. Steve Kirsch is really just like this weirdo. Did you know that in summer of 2021, he was asked to step down from M10, which deals with like blockchain technology to banks, just because of how embarrassing this guy was to the company.
So embarrassing for the crypto bros.
Oh yeah,
that's embarrassing. Wow.
He was also like this movie shows, and I just cut that out because it's way too much. But there's footage of him like challenging people to come in to discuss COVID vaccines with him so he can get these ingredients. He offers like $2 million. He goes on Joe Rogan's show. We're going to have to wait for Stu Peters going on Joe Rogan. It's going to be terrible.
Wait,
but
Rogan had on Steve Kirsch?
No, yeah, Steve Kirsch went on Joe Rogan.
Yeah. Wow.
Like the movie also shows the police coming to Steve Kirsch's house. He's like recording the interaction with him and the police after he calls on people to harass a main person in like the government vaccine world of Grace Lee. Like calling up her office, telling people to like demand this, and then like going to her place of work. So eventually like local police like informs him to not go anywhere near her again. And I'm really glad you've been bringing up like filming and editing. This has been really like Steve Kirsch looks great in there. Like usually like he looks just terrible, but like that's what a professional crew will do. Just really
his own avatar on Twitter, he looks like a guy that would like walk into the kitchen on To Catch a Predator, sort of.
Yeah.
That's how I would describe.
Hey, I just want to let you know I'm pulling into the funeral home here, and I've got some guys that are with me. Are you fine with me bringing them in?
And it says, wait, I want to read this for the audience. The following imagery is from actual cadavers and has not been prepared, altered, or manipulated in any way. Killer music. We got slow-mo shots of some kind of surgeon going to work or doing the autopsy.
This is the iliac artery.
Oof.
You made
Every
a very.
doctor I saw said it was extremely.
Sorry, go ahead.
You made a very serious mistake right there. You said the doctor doing the surgery.
Yes, sorry.
No.
I meant the autopsy. Sorry.
No, it's not an autopsy. Like autopsies are performed by doctors.
Oh.
That is the embalmer working on a cadaver. But you might actually be right, because just about like a minute later, there is like an open heart surgery shown on there, which is funny because like they talk about this hasn't been altered or manipulated, except factcheck.org found the actual source of that heart transplant video, and it was from a person from 2019, and that person in fact survived their heart surgery. And so it's not COVID related. They're lying. They got caught here, but nobody here is going to go and check the side by side video of how it's actually the same video right here. But in terms of like that surgery you saw right there, like them pulling out the clots, and I definitely like saved you from that right there. But it is very graphic. They are in fact pulling out those postmortem clots that most likely are a part of refrigeration, and then switching over to a different surgery video.
This is what's so amazing about the popularity of this. Is like this. I can't watch this open heart surgery. It's like amazing how many people are willing to watch this like graphic stuff.
Yeah. So
is there going to be heart surgery? Because I need to like close my eyes.
oh no, I
okay.
cut that out of there.
Yeah.
No, that was difficult for me to watch, and I'm a child of somethingawful.com.
Oh, geez.
So yeah, this one is a little easier. This is how you can tell, like, this is later in the movie. They've made their marks, and now you can. I thought this was a really great scene because you can see a guy who is a mark just getting played.
Oh, let's see this.
It was extremely rare.
Let me back it up a second.
Every doctor I saw said it was extremely rare.
Which side did you get the shot in? Which arm?
I think it was both. Do you think it could have been the left for both of them? Because you got two, right?
Yeah, it could have been the left.
Because the left arm definitely looked it had much higher thermal signal than the right.
And they're showing thermal imaging of his body. Yeah.
So yeah, this guy comes in. He says like, I think I got my shot in both arms, and then the quack doc says right here. I didn't write that guy's name down, but it's like, do you think it was your left arm? And it definitely is like that power of suggestion. But like, imagine you're shown a magic trick. The magician says like, "Is this your card?" And then you forget. I don't remember what my card is. And then the magician says like, "Was it the two of hearts?" Yes, that was my card. Like,
right.
That they have this thermal image, like there is something like you had a stroke, right? It seems like this person had a stroke, and they're just saying like, "Oh, was it the same side? Your stroke is on the left side of your body. Was that where you had the shot at?" I don't remember. And then just like sort of like power of suggestion, being like, "Oh, I guess we can just like fool this guy into thinking that's where he got his shot and that's what caused it." But that's all the clips I have for Died Suddenly.
And now we got 5 days.
Yeah, but I will say that the movie ends talking about how stillbirth deaths have skyrocketed, and they attribute that to COVID shots, not COVID itself, not environments. They say like stillbirth death has just skyrocketed because of that. And then all of a sudden, they end with the song "Dance Baby Dance" like it's the end of the world. And they should have like all these clips of like comedians like encouraging people to get the vaccine. Even Pride and Joy of Tennessee, Dolly Parton sings "Vaccine, Vaccine." And I will say this: the credits for Died Suddenly has a special thanks to people. And one name that really jumped out to me was Kim.com. So thanks, Kim.com, for whatever your contribution was to the movie Died Suddenly.
Yeah, Kim.com. Yeah, the guy who's the only good governments are China and Russia, the two places that I can maybe need to seek asylum in.
I'm glad you understand things.
Yeah. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the fact that the United States wants to like put me in jail. That I like love these two. Yeah, he's and little known fact. I just want to get it on the record because everyone brushes it over. I was in a Twitter space when the Ukraine war, like early on. It was it was like hosted by Ukrainians, and Kim.com would go into these Twitter spaces and sort of like troll them and like tell the Ukrainians like you're liars and paid by NATO and stuff. And he's this huge Putin fan. And one of them brought up, he said, "Why do you buy all this Nazi memorabilia?" And at the time, I would, like I'm sort of a sucker. I'm like, oh, maybe. And he was like, "I am just interested in the history, And then when Kanye West had his "I Love Hitler" meltdown on Alex Jones's show with Nick Fuentes, and just went like full Hitler lover, Kim.com. What he tweeted, he tweeted, "I agree with you. You're like basically you're right about the Jews, but you like said it in the wrong way." Yeah, so he's a German Nazi and hiding in New Zealand. Yeah. And let's talk about DeVar Hamlin, the NFL guy, because I mean,
Oh yeah,
one thing about Stu Peters is he really goes for like just the dumbest, boldest conspiracies, like the Ukraine war is not even real. Look at this, like the building is there's a tarp over it and it was never it or something like
all
he
right.
said wasn't real. And they didn't he say like this Buffalo Bills player got injured. He got hit with a helmet right at his heart and he had to be like wheeled off the field. And they were like, he died from the vaccine. Immediately they were jumping to that, and then he showed up at a game and his like face was covered with a mask or something, like a COVID mask, and they were like, well, they got to do that because it's a body double, right? Stu Peters got behind that, right?
Oh, I don't know. I'll have to look that up because Died Suddenly came out like a few weeks before Damar Hamlin had his heart attack on the field at a Buffalo Bills game. But like, yeah, that was incorporated into this belief of being a vaccine-related death. I don't know if that's something Stu Peters immediately jumped on, but in terms of like it being a fake death. But yeah, I definitely know what the story you're talking about how, body double, not showing his face. I will say very comically, I was recently watching an episode of the Alex Jones show, and Alex Jones tried to bring up Damar Hamilton, but didn't remember Damar Hamilton's name. Didn't remember what
It's Hamlin.
Oh, yeah, didn't remember what team he played for. Did not remember what position he played. He was just saying a football player who was a wide receiver. It's all those like people running down the field get heart attacks because believing that that's what triggers it. So that's all I have to say about Damar. Also, good luck on playing next season. Even though they swapped you out with a body double.
Actually, the body double actually got some yards, I think, yesterday.
He plays defense. He doesn't get yards.
Oh, really?
All right.
No, the body double was in the NFL game yesterday. Yeah.
Yep. It's really going to look really bad if he goes to the Hall of Fame and they actually contest it because it's a body double, getting all those great stats.
And it's like, well, why do you have two families with you in your Hall of Fame ceremony? Yeah,
all right,
it's gonna be awkward. So Final Days, I'm excited for this one.
Yeah. So Final Days, sponsored by Goldco. Like, I know all these other movies do have like a financial incentive. This one just straight up sponsored by Goldco. So Final Days is a anti-transhumanist film, and it starts off with all types of music. They chose synthwave. They chose modern synthwave for the start of this.
Genetic power is the most awesome force the planet's ever seen. You wield it like a kid that found his dad's gun.
That's Jeff Goldblum?
Yes, they got a Jeff Goldblum audio clip from Jurassic Park in there.
Right. Well,
Twitter user Hollow Sun wrote a chilling thread entitled, "AI is not artificial."
This is good After Effects animation. I really want to know how much they pay.
I forgot the name of the guy, but they actually brought in a new guy for this movie just to do special effects. And I think if you look at this, you'll just see like the main person that they interview throughout this like is green screened, and they have like a CGI screen that they add on there. Like they really did pull a number on here, making this like visually watchable. Wow. Too bad that like watching this myself, I thought I was watching this, I was like, I think I was messaging you and I was like, this is the most unwatchable film. I'll have nothing to say about Final Days. This is the worst. And then I got like towards the end, I was like, oh my God. I was like Brian Artist, oh my God.
Yeah.
So yeah, so they got themselves a Twitter post from Hollow Sun. I couldn't actually find that Twitter user. I was really worried when I see Sun and somebody involved in anti-transhumanism. I just assume like it's a black sun. But they had a Twitter post. Let's find out more about their Twitter.
And it says on the screen, AI. It says AI is not artificial, which I gotta say, it's sort of a resting phrase, whether it's fictional or not. Let's see.
In it, he explains a perspective on technology.
I want to give them their
not artificial. In it, he explains a perspective on technology that is quite absent in the modern world, and one that is integral to understanding why there's anything to be concerned about.
And it's a tweet that says, all technology comes from demonic superintelligences taught to humans to facilitate our destruction. Right.
All technology comes from demonic superintelligences taught to humans to facilitate our destruction.
Thanks for reading what they said anyway.
I'm sorry.
There you go. Yeah. All AI is super intelligence from demonic superpowers to bring in our destruction. So that's the entire plot here is of the first half of this movie is about how AI is bringing in the end of humanity. They bring in all these. It's almost like AI is like Skynet. It's designed to kill everybody. They have like these guys giving like speeches that they claim are like derived from like demonic sources. They have like Ray Kurzweil, Larry Page of Google, Gregor Mendel, Steve Jobs, Neil Bohr, also claiming that Bob Dylan made a deal with the devil. Like, by the way,
the classic 60 Minutes clip.
Yeah,
that's the classic. Yeah,
but it's definitely like misunderstanding what Bob Dylan said. Like he made a deal with like
Supreme
like, the guy. Yeah, thinking that like, oh, the devil is in charge of like the material world, whereas like God is in charge of the heavenly world. Like, okay, like Bob Dylan doesn't understand theology. Give him a break. He changes his theology every couple of years. Also, like he was like what 80 at the time that came out. Like he doesn't know. I'm gonna rely on Bob Dylan for one thing only, and that's a song about the John Birch Society.
The Jingle Jangle Man, as I call it. I'm one of those vicious Leonard Cohen fans that has to put down Bob Dylan to build up my guy.
In my house, we do not play Bob Dylan.
Oh, yeah. The Jingle Jangle Man. Yeah, he's got some great songs. But for people who don't know, he did have like this messianic Christian phase, right? In the late 70s. He actually made like worship music, I guess. And apparently some of it's pretty good, but sort of some background on why Bob Dylan, he was basically like doing like this metaphorical thing on 60 Minutes in the 2000s. It's like, I made a deal with the Supreme Commander, if you know what I mean. Just trying to be cryptic Bob Dylan.
The devil is the god of this world, so he has the power to grant us material things, but only if we accept his pacts. Your soul cannot be stolen unless you give it away. Have you ever signed a terms and agreements without reading it?
Oh no, you actually gave away your soul in subsection B?
Yeah, that's what they're implying.
Oh, fuck.
Then it might already be too late.
And a clock.
All right. Yeah. So there you go. Kind of just implying that like, and I guess like we keep mentioning Alex Jones. This is a lot of things that brought up that like the devil can only steal your soul if you let him. And so like they do like blatant things in front of you in order to get you to submit.
This is the classic. This is the revelation method. They're like, they have a rule. They gotta tell you first to make. Yeah, right. The classic.
So if you don't read those, you sign up for iTunes, you get those terms of, oh, darn it, but I just wanted to download Rich Man North of Richmond. Now all of a sudden, Steve Jobs owns my soul.
Now Tim Cook owns my conscience?
So this movie jumps around, just kind of just throwing anything at the wall to see what sticks, to get people to like suck them in. They talk about the Eisenhower like farewell address about the military industrial complex, and then it was like, is it too late? I guess not, because now everybody loves science. It just has like all of these clips of like neolibs telling people science is good. So you have like Bill Gates being like, medicine will help people live longer. They got Noah Harari, his book, like The Future of Sapiens. Why did I write that down? What if Noah Harari dated Grimes? Why did I write that in my notes?
I think he's gay. So that's not good.
All right. So it really just like this section is just like a half hour of tech bros like Elon Musk, Neil deGrasse Tyson, DeGrasse, like all of like just having clips about them being like in the future, like we'll merge with machines, like just like stupid theoretical technology that doesn't exist, doesn't even have people working on it. It's just like it's people pretending they're LARPing as Tony Stark, like just saying like how cool would it be if like a computer did something for your body. We don't actually get to finally meet our main character of the movie, and that is Carrie Kington. What do you think she does or had done for a living that made her an expert in this?
On AI, she was IT support.
Yeah, you're kind of right. Not quite IT support, but
she was
sort of
IT
like a
support at a Dollar General in Arkansas.
She's more of like a legal person.
Okay.
She had like a career of like going over patents and kind of like summarizing them and like explaining them to like corporations on like what patents are. So like instead of like getting like this 100-page document like explaining what the patent is, you get like a more summarized version. Like that was her job. She worked for Pfizer from about 96 to 98, and then got into this anti-vaxxer community. There's like one clip where she was like talking about like how like trying to like go over patents, and she's like, I get all the stress, but I just keep going and God does the rest. But like she just like comes to this like conclusion that the patent of the Pfizer COVID vaccine is actually a bioweapon. And she comes up with this sort of theory that it's graphite oxide. The vaccine itself is just graphite oxide. Fact checkers will say that there is no graphene oxide in there, but those are just fact checkers. Also, Brian Ardis will say that the vaccine has cobra venom in there and not graphite oxide. But you know what? He's a fact checker. We got to believe Karen Hinkson, who's read the patent. And the reason why it has graphite oxide is to merge body with machine. That way, like the graphite oxide becomes like a computer, and it just gets really just like, I think this is going to be our last clip right here. And then I'm going to try my best to explain what happens in the rest of the movie.
I just want to say before I press play, like, I really hope it's going to be a German guy who's like, they're going to merge you with a machine, but this machine is satanic. That would be great. All right, let's see.
When it's been merged with these non-human proteins that Pfizer did in Groton, Connecticut, and they merge graphene oxide, an electromagnetic conductor, with proteins, biological proteins, and they create these new synthetic agents, they're called transducers. That means they can change the electromagnetic field inside the human body. Graphene oxide is being used because of its great electromagnetic properties. This is not conspiracy theory, and people are hosting electromagnetic fields. We have people who are able to put magnets to themselves. They're emitting Bluetooth signals.
You're telling me they made me trans with the vaccine?
No. They don't make you trans.
So this is
They
why.
make you emit Bluetooth signals.
So this is why the globalists want to be around me all the time.
And I really don't think I can really explain this. So there was a clip, I had to cut it out because it was all in Spanish. They take something from a documentary from Mexico called Blue Truth. In this documentary, these guys go to a graveyard and they scan signals for Bluetooth, and find like all of these like signals coming from people's graves. And so they're saying that like the vaccine itself is turning people into machines. And they later go on to like explain how this works with the movie Died Suddenly, about how like their bodies are like being like her interpretation of like how the clots are like somewhat like machine like. I know we've gone over the place, snake venom in water. We've gotten satanic cults. 1/6 of Georgia is 37 covenants. But now we're finally here at the end point, and we're explaining that they're turning your dead body into a Bluetooth signal. You're turning you into a machine with Wi-Fi access. And
so dark. That is so dark.
So if if you're somebody who watches all of these Stu Peters movies, you believe everything that they say in there, you're going to have to accept a lot of just bizarre, untrue, like you got to be a sap here. And I don't know if we're ever going to get into a phase like where you have all these people saying that Alex Jones is right. They do the same thing with Stu Peters. Stu Peters was right. Stu Peters says that your body is being turned into a computer. Like, so you're trying to tell me here that
You're trying to tell me I'm a snake and a Bluetooth signal? What the?
I'm just having trouble here.
I'm a snake Bluetooth symbol. You're telling me I'm a snake and you're using me to do internet. That's disgusting. Wow.
And so this movie right here just ends. There's a cameo from Project Veritas where they're like, this is actually what cost James O'Keefe, well, supposedly it's actually is his last thing. They claimed Pfizer took his job at but going undercover at a bar, like getting a guy drunk, and he's talking about like controlled evolution of viruses, but like deliberately misinterpreting it, being like how the vaccine is supposed to like deliberately like change the evolution of humanity. And there's also like a clip from a Russian station that's like talking about how anti-transhumanist thought, like from like a Russian military leader, like on like this is literally like you're displaying Russian propaganda in your movie. And like that's what it is. Like it's indistinguishable from Russian propaganda because it just works so well. And so there you go. That is the Stu Peters cinematic universe. I imagine he's just going to keep cranking things out. I mean, he's got a team. Final Days is actually like the best produced thing, despite the fact like it's garbage. But as long as you can keep finding people to like go on camera for a half hour, talk about like the most ridiculous thing, he has a team that can turn it into a well-produced movie that definitely gives it credence. So I don't know where he's going to go. Is he going to keep making more like COVID conspiracy movies? Is he going to start making some like overt Christian nationalist type of stuff? Is he going to go back into like Diego Rodriguez's family? Because Amon Bundy just got arrested related to that same thing just this past week as I'm recording this. Like, all I can say is when Watch the Water 3 drops out, you have to have me back on here.
I'm counting down the days. But why are they turning us into Bluetooth signals?
Oh, why would they do that? It's part of the demonic course of turning humanity into a machine by having like the graphite oxide from the vaccine transform you into sort of like a
Or like the
cyborg.
batteries, like in the Matrix, were like the human battery, maybe.
They could have just said like in the Matrix,
Like in the
but
Matrix. Yeah.
that's just not Stu Peters' style to say.
It's
It's
more
like this
classic.
movie, even though like it starts off with a quote from Jeff Goldblum from a movie. It's still not his style to say.
From the documentary, the Cinema Verite documentary, Jurassic Park. Did they find a way to bring Pokemon Go into the conspiracy?
Oh, I wish. I love Pokemon Go.
I love those conspiracies about it. Like it, or maybe like some of them are true. Like, wasn't there like a thing where like it also had like a dual purpose of like mapping places in some way?
I mean, yes,
It was a conspiracy, maybe.
there is a newer feature on Pokemon Go where they ask you to take sort of like a 30-second video where you just kind of like do a circle around like where a stop is. And like, but like the purpose of that is like to check and see if the stop is safe. Like if they have a video and like they just like people submit videos to the company that makes Pokemon Go, they look at it and they're like, why do we have a stop here? Like we're gonna get somebody hurt. Let's take this down. That's I would imagine that's the reason why they ask people to submit.
Wait, Pokemon Go's still good? It's still around?
Yeah.
Holy shit. When was that? That was like
2016 is when it first launched.
Oh my god. Yeah, I remember that Coldplay song came out.
But like, yeah, like
Dancing
the
Monkey.
game, like the original like concept of the game is like you have the camera out, like you point it to like one specific spot and a Pokemon appears. And like when it came out, like people were
It was so big.
There was definitely like one local guy in here that he's not going to get a free shout out here today, but he was saying how like the CIA was using Pokemon Go to map out your house, and I was like,
Right.
no, it's your house. That you already bring your phone in your house. They can just like they can go to the city and be like, can we get the blueprint for your house? Why? We're the CIA. Oh, here you go. Like
They have no idea what your house is like. They have no clue. It could be a circle, it could be a triangle, but until you bring in the Pokemon Go, they can't. But you know, it's funny. I was thinking like we're getting technology that will sound like it will sound like a schizophrenic. Like apparently I could be wrong, but like they're developing like videos that were like you like take a video of your like skin, and this might be wrong, but it's like they can read your heartbeat and stuff through that. Like there are some like technologies that aren't going to sound totally crazy going on.
I'm just waiting for them to make an AI that can escape the uncanny valley. So far, they have been unsuccessful, and I don't think they ever will be.
Well, I got news for you on the voice front. They have, for instance,
Have I been talking to an AI Daniel Schwartz the whole time?
Isn't.
Oh no!
Yeah, but actually, I want someone else to tell you this. Little person I call Megan.
Goad Gatsby is AI.
What'd you say, Megan? Wait a second. What'd you say? Wait.
Goad Gatsby is artificial intelligence.
Thank you, Megan Kelly. Yeah, no, on the voice.
Wow. I can't believe Megan Kelly said that about me.
Oh, how about Tommy Loren? She's also in the room with me.
Goad Gatsby is artificial intelligence.
Tommy Loren would say that about me? That can't be real.
It's me and Tommy and Megan, and you know, we're gonna have some fun after this.
All right, somebody needs to use AI correctly, and that's make Bob Dylan an AI of Bob Dylan sing Kendrick Lamar's Backseat Freestyle. That's all I want AI technology to do now.
Yes, send me your request. Closing thoughts.
So with all these movies about Stu Peters, like his rise to fame, the network he has been building, we're going to see Tucker Carlson not be able to like reclaim his position. We're gonna see the collapse of Alex Jones's Infowars pretty soon, and he's making a move to be like the main dude here in this like sort of like right wing like John Birch Society replacement type of world. And I think he's been worth like having on my radar, like learning about, because he really is like the future of this right wing world because they're everybody's wanting something harder and harder. They don't want Glenn Beck anymore. They don't want Sean Hannity. They're going to keep going to something, and I think he's going to try and get that sweet spot of just like crazy militia guys and Christian nationalists, and even Nick Fuentes types are rolling with him. The Daily Wire, The Blaze, those definitely have been like the biggest after Fox News. But I think Stuart Peters is going to be like when people are saying I want something bigger than Ben Shapiro, they're going to go to Stu Peters, and I think that's just going to be what the next 10 years in the hard right talk radio circles are.
It's just surprising. It's like I always thought he was just too dumb to do that, but he appears to be doing it. I just want to make some comments on Tucker and Alex Jones. Tucker, I think, just does not translate to the internet. Like when he does his shtick now on Twitter, you see that his whole shtick, it matched TV in a way that it's sort of old timey. It's like sort of like Andy Rooney, essay to camera. And he did this interview with the Tate brothers and Ice Cube, and it seemed like no one outside of his right-wing bubble was even noticing that, and it's only going to get worse. So that's been good, and so I agree with you on that. And Alex Jones, I highly recommend people listen to the Knowledge Fight podcast if they haven't heard it. It's this great podcast done by these two guys where they just break down these Alex Jones shows, and like they show like he is just constantly just fabricating, lying, distorting quotes. But I haven't watched Alex Jones on my own in years since he got like deplatformed. I've seen clips, but they'll play his newer shows and he just sounds tired. He's like mailing it in. He's like doing all his old tricks of like, and at the top of the hour, I am going to get to this report. And then it's like next segment, he's like, oh, I should just go home right now. And this info is too big, and I am not adequate to give it to you. And then he does his great stuff where he slaps himself in the face, and he's like, I just want to walk out that door and leave right now. And then like eventually it'll be like the end of the show will be like, and next week or like next episode, and I'm gonna get to that info. And he's just like it seems like, you tell me, Goad, like has he really dropped off?
I think he's always been this bad. I mean, I've just kind of like, I do watch Alex Jones every day. I love to suffer. He should have stayed on public access. Like he wants to do skit comedy and he just doesn't know how to do it anymore. And but the entire network and the purpose of InfoWars isn't to cause disinformation. It isn't to do all these weird right-wing things. The purpose of InfoWars is to sell pills. And the fact that when you turn it on, if you don't look at it as like everything is designed to move you from Infowars.com to InfoWarsStore.com to purchase the products related in there in order to keep the business afloat, if that's how you look at InfoWars and not as it's designed to cause it. I mean, it's designed to cause this misinformation, but the reason why he can phone in like having to read the news is because Alex Jones's main purpose is to sell you these pills and not to focus on these news stories. So he's just no longer being very convincing. And from what I can learn from Knowledge Fight, I think the turning point was around 2020 when the guy from InfoWars stores, Tom Fabergé, he quits and he goes and works for My Patriot Supply, the food bucket company. Like that was his money guy. And I think without his money guy, like actually like being the sane person in the room, like telling him like how to run a business, I think doing a business is taking the biggest toll on him. So I think he just like goes and like apologizes, like I gotta go read some scripts for ads. I just don't want to do this. Like he just feels embarrassed to like run his own company and tell people like to buy his products. He just doesn't have those smooth pivots he had in years past.
He seems more drunk, or like more. He seems a little lower energy, but it's interesting. You mentioned Todd Fabergé or something, whatever his name was. His deposition, they went over it on Knowledge Fight. It's a great episode, and the guy was like, basically, I don't watch Alex Jones. I'm not really. I think he sucks, right? Well, he was like, he sucks or something.
Especially if you have the knowledge that he is the purpose of InfoWars is to direct you to InfoWars store to buy those products, and he's the guy who has to sell you those products. He just sees the game exactly the way how you're not supposed to see it.
I mean, I think eventually Alex Jones was going to be, his credibility was going to be killed just because he's a false prophet, like the eugenic, Club of Rome, elite, Bill Gates conspiracy was supposed to cull the world population years ago, 90%.
Yep. But fortunately, the globalists are 10 years behind.
Yeah. Well, the amazing thing, I don't listen to Alex Jones's show anymore, the full show, because it's like a little bit difficult to find and stuff. But I know where to find it, but I just don't. But I still listen to this guy. Have you ever heard of Jeff Rentz?
No, I know Tom Rentz.
No. Okay, so he's like the OG Alex Jones. Actually, I think they had a lawsuit, but they were on the same network. If you look up this guy, he has the craziest haircut you'll ever see. He's had like 8 wives, but he's same thing as Jones, but he's like pro Hitler. He loves the Nazis, but I listen to him because he just makes me laugh because he's so pessimistic.
I just looked at a piece of news footage, and I have never seen farmland any drier than I saw in that story. They're talking about Dust Bowl conditions, which could happen, and this is all being, remember, this is geoengineering. Thank you, Dane Wigington, for making this all clear to us. This is geoengineering. It's been done on purpose. They're going to roast and fry everything, and I think most of the rest of you will understand that that includes frying the mountains, i.e. forests.
So when people started getting the vaccines, I would listen to his show, and he would just literally say stuff like, listen, I know it hurts. Your brother got the vaccine, okay? But it's just time to admit, it's over. They're gone now. You can just prepare for the funeral, 2 years. But like they call it, and they still call it the kill shot. Like they literally told me, like I've interviewed a lot of these conspiracy peoples for this project I've been working on. But I had multiple of these guys look me dead in the eyes and tell me, yeah, you're going to be dead in a year because you got the vaccine. Like one of them, like even called her friend, like, yeah, he got the vaccine, but tell him what he can do so, he doesn't die. And this guy's like, I think you're probably going to die, but if you take this thing, and I I have to assume people believe this, but like if you really believe this and like told people like me we were gonna die in a year and then we're still alive, wouldn't some of them be like apologizing? I see no evidence that any of these people who've called the kill shot have like said
It's like the doomsday cult that I can't remember the name of it, but they would make the what?
Jonestown?
No.
Heaven's Gate?
No. They didn't actually do a suicide pact. They did numerology, and they were like, the world is going to end on this day, and so day comes, world doesn't end. They said, but all this attention has been brought to them on their claim that the world was going to end. They're like, oh, we just misread the scripture. The new end of the world date is going to be this day. And, this group did it, like, I think in the 80s or whatever, but like they just kept building momentum every time because they would get this like free publicity of this group says the world is going to end and just build up their congregation. I mean, but like, not like the popularity that Died Suddenly has. We're talking like 1,000 followers, but like it's building up every time because of the attention. This has been done on like a magnified level of every time that there's a prediction about like mass deaths doing like from vaccine, like they're able to like grab all of this attention from just being like so provocative, and guys like me make fun of them, and somehow they're able to like they're being, well, maybe not guys like me, we're talking like much larger like media organizations, like they get all this attention, like, oh, they say people are going to die from it, and they're able to like convince some people like, oh, maybe Norm Macdonald and Bob Saget did die from vaccines, who knows. So they're just able to fool people into thinking that there have been deaths, and then getting them to believe like maybe there's more, instead of just being like, no, everybody's still alive, just a couple celebrities have died. Like, is your entire reality centered around celebrities? And for the sad part is, I think that is, especially like with Alex Jones, it is like a personality based news network. It's centered around like if a famous person experiences something. And then I was mentioning way early about McAuliffe, Dr. Peter McAuliffe, who had been trying to pin a vaccine.
I think it's McCullough.
Yeah, what am I saying? McAuliffe? McCullough.
Yeah.
Okay, I got an accent, but he's trying to pin like a vaccine injury on Jamie Foxx, and I don't know if you've been paying attention to this, that Jamie Foxx had, I think, maybe a stroke or something like that, and saying that, making these claims about Jamie Foxx because like he showed like vaccine hesitancy, and I think there's a difference between like being vaccine hesitant and being just an outright like vaccine doesn't work, because like here I'm somebody who's willing to say that vaccines aren't necessarily for everyone. There should be like people should like consider like different risks on like why some people shouldn't get vaccines, and so like that's why there is like a hesitancy for getting a different vaccine. Like one of my good friends, she loves vaccines. She tells me like every time a new vaccine rolls out, she wants to get it. Like, she loves compulsory vaccines, but she was like, I can't get the Pfizer. I have to get the Moderna because there's one specific thing in it that I am allergic to.
Right.
And so like kind of like taking this sort of vaccine hesitancy that people have and just saying like, oh, they're with us. And then so if anything wrong happens to them, whether they suffer a stroke at the age of 55, which seems like way too young for somebody to have, but like when you look at like how doctors don't catch illnesses from Black people in the United States because we have an absolutely inequitable medical system, even if you're wealthy like Jamie Foxx, like doctors are going to still like miss possible health concerns for Black patients. Like if you disclude that, then all of a sudden you're like, well, it's a relatively young person suffering a stroke, must be from the vaccine then.
Also, these people, when they talk about like myocarditis, for instance, and a doctor told this to me, it's like, I think he said like, yeah, that can be a side effect in rare cases for like young men sometimes.
Yeah.
Vaccine, but they said COVID has much worse myocarditis.
Absolutely.
And these people always ignore what happens from COVID. You can lose your sense of smell. They never want to talk about that either.
So like, yeah, in this like anti-vax world, there is a study they love to point to, and it does say that there is an increased risk of myocarditis if a person gets a vaccine. What it also says in there is that you need to weigh the risks of the vaccine itself, and as you say, like if you get COVID, you have a higher risk of catching myocarditis than you'd have of just getting a vaccine. So so even within the study, it says like you need to weigh that risk. And so if somebody has a very elevated chance of being immune compromised, that like if you get any myocarditis, it's going to be fatal, then you're better off not getting a specific like Pfizer or Moderna vaccine. You might be better off like getting AstraZeneca or Johnson and Johnson, even though like those aren't recommended by the CDC anymore because of being linked to blood clotting. But like that is something that should be like decided by a medical professional, and not, I heard like a guy on this news radio show or in a podcast or whatever say that it's better. Like it's look, don't get your medical advice from me. Don't get your medical advice from an embalmer. Don't get your medical advice from a person who reads patents from Pfizer. Like, get your
the arrogance is just like it's just astounding and scary to like see, and we've seen it now that like 30, I don't know how large this group is, maybe you do, but it's like at least 10 million people were so like gullible and crossed with arrogance that they literally thought like they could get a PhD in virology from watching some like BitChute videos. Like, just there's the with the Dunning-Kruger effect. I mean, but it is frightening to see. I just want to say, do you remember when Laura Loomer tweeted about she's like,
how dare you bring up Laura Loomer on today of all days?
Her special day with Trump. Yeah, I'm ruining.
Well, what about Laura Loomer?
Remember those tweets where she's like, is it just me or does food not taste good? And I just don't want to eat. I can't taste anything. And everything's changed.
Yes, her long COVID tweet. Yes.
I mean, it's tragic. It's tragic to see. I want to end just like on a more serious note, because you're somebody who has a valuable perspective because you follow this really closely. One theory that I am intrigued by is the conspiracy diet does display similarities with like other kinds of addictions. And I wonder, do you ever think about, like I think about the first time I saw Loose Change. You ever seen Loose Change?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was convinced about Loose Change at first.
Listen, just as a video editor, it's a great documentary as far as just editing. It's not true. That's right. I'm not saying that, but it really captures you. And like, I remember the first time I saw Loose Change, it was like, it is sort of a physical reaction. It feels like, oh, I'm getting forbidden knowledge. I'm seeing a map. And he's like, 2:30 Tuesday. It's a really well-made movie, despite the veracity or whatever you think. But like, he's like, Tuesday 2:30, United Airlines 666 goes into the wave above Albany and then does a precise 6-point turn, flown by a Saudi Arabian guy who only drove a car once. And like there is a physical reaction. So I'm almost interested to see if we can sort of think about like the rise of conspiracy as like almost a addiction issue, because it feels that's why it's special. It's that content we put over there. It's like, oh, you can't do that. You can't do the drugs, and I really wonder if like a lot of what we're seeing is just like people get bored and they run out of the same ones, and like you said, they need something new. And the thing I wonder about is like, is that just gonna doom us till like it's just always has to get more extreme until like we have like the next Second World War and people like get a reminder that no, like this crazy fascist conspiracy bullshit like leads to like death and destruction?
So with what makes people stop doing this is consequences. Why would somebody like continue to do this when it's cost prohibitive to them? And the fool I have been like, okay, after a while of pushing back, people will realize, I'll get a vaccine. It's more a struggle to fight it than it is to actually get it. But then there's just like an entire network dedicated to being around anti-vax. And as long as like these structures have like, a financial market to support it, they're going to continue to exist. So I guess like until the fall of capitalism, like it's going to continue as is. I don't think that it's going to get worse or weaker either way. I think that just the visibility of like its strength will be more known because of just people have gotten better at observing these groups. And all I can say is that sort of like the fall of capitalism is what will diminish like these sorts of networks that are centered around like monetizing anti-vax sentiment, monetizing Christian nationalists. Like, you live in a post-capitalist society, there won't be a give, send, go.
You won't have to set up your like actually happened. And this is like, if I was a politician, this is how I would always talk about healthcare, because this actually happened. Remember the Club Q shooting? This like anti-LGBTQ shooter?
Yeah, in Colorado.
Yeah, he shot up this gay club in Colorado Springs called Club Q, I believe, and because they did a drag show. And some of the shooting victims had to set up give, send, go accounts from their hospital beds. I mean, like this system where they have to contact people they went to high school with and like beg them. It's just, I don't know how we can see this and not just like be totally convinced that like this is a disgusting and shameful country when you consider that, I was just reading Morocco has universal health care. Italy has, Taiwan, Germany, Netherlands, England. But we, the richest country in the world, no, we can't afford it. It's like I tell people, it's like Italy has they don't have the big tech companies, but they can do it. Like, anyways, sorry.
I just want to point out, I said give, send, go, not GoFundMe. Give, send, go is the Christian nationalist, like deplatform one. Like, so like Proud Boys are able to get all they did a lot of crowdfunding from Give, Send, Go after being deplatformed off of GoFundMe. I mean, like you wouldn't have those types, like obviously like in the fall of a post-capitalist society, like you'd be like, oh, you just got hit by a terrorist attack here, your medical bills are on us. I'm talking about how that there is funding networks centered around,
right. No, I see what you're
absolutely in just grifts of things.
So I have to ask you, do you think the Alex Jones Sandy Hook verdict is going to have any, because I have some hope that plus the Dominion Fox lawsuit is going to have a good chilling effect on like the most irresponsible conspiracy theories. Do you have any hope about that?
I mean, I would say I have hope, but I just told you that the guy from the first movie got hit with a $52 million judgment against him. And he hasn't stopped.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't think that some of these people are true believers. Some people believe that they'll never face consequences. Some people will think that they're just built differently and it won't affect them. And I gotta say, they're gonna foolishly find out that that's not the case. I mean, especially like there's that one lawsuit that was filed by Patriot Front members against the person who had allegedly doxed them. And I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a doctor. I pretend to be a legal expert on blue sky, but these guys are going to lose their lawsuit. They might also like expose themselves in discovery if it even gets that far. That like they're just convinced that they can't lose. But and actually partially that might be the case. Like you say like, well, Alex Jones had $1 billion judgment against them, and then you turn on the InfoWars and Alex Jones is still there, as if the lawsuit didn't affect him. So it's about denial. He can just say, I didn't lose $1 billion in the lawsuit. And everybody that already believes him will believe it. So you can just say like, no, I beat the globalists. They took me to court and I won. And if you already believe there's snake venom in the water, you're not going to question that either.
Yeah, and I should mention Alex Jones, I guess, just did a partnership with Rumble in a way through Steven Crowder. They're doing something, what is it called? The replatforming and
but he's basically the Mug Club Steven Crowder brand is expanding to include
a weekly Alex Jones show.
Yeah, and a bunch of people that what are they doing? But Steven Crowder's on his way down. He bet big against the Daily Wire and lost poorly.
So, like, do you have any podcast recommendations?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I regularly listen to Knowledge Fight. I listen to I Don't Speak German. I've also been on there for an episode. I'm an occasional listener to Robert Evans. I have problems listening to podcasts that have commercials. It's
right.
It's sort of a thing. Like I put, if I can't get to my phone to skip the ads,
right,
then I'm just not going to listen to it. I also just got into Western Kabuki.
Oh, I've never heard of that one.
It's
wow.
Everybody's favorite pudding person, Juniper, is one of the regular members, and it started off as a Nicolas Cage film discussion podcast, and just morphed into like talking about like stupid shit on Twitter.
I gotta ask you, since you just saw all these Stu Peters thing, let's just do a mini like Stu Peters Oscar. Best performance. Best actor.
Oh, best actor. Brian Artis. Watch the Water chiropractor.
That guy is great. The guy's like, I gotta do impressions like, the fact checkers, they lie to you by definition. That guy is great with the smile. I love that guy. Worst performance.
Worst performance. So that'd be a Razzie. Ooh. I guess I go Karen Kington of Final Days.
She's a bit low energy. And what about Stu Peters?
He's not even in the second or the last two movies we had, Final Days and Died Suddenly. Like
he's not even interviewing people in those?
No, he just sourced that out to his two directors.
Wow. When is Watch the Water 3 coming out?
We'll have to wait and see if there is a Watch the Water 3.
I've already got my countdown clock set up. So when that happens, yes, I'm gonna watch it, and I would love to have you on for a full report. Actually, I'll be honest. I'm gonna have to, with my friends, we are definitely gonna have to watch the Water now.
That's actually the most boring of them all because it's just like straight up in a room being interviewed.
I've seen clips and it's like, I bet you didn't know that diabetes drugs are 100% snake bones. Bet you didn't know that. Well, it's true. What do you think about that? I love it.
You'd be surprised about how fast that gets really boring.
Well, we're going to give it a try. So talk about where people can find your work, talk about your radio show, and whatever you want to say about yourself. What are you researching now? What are the new topics that really got your attention? And what are your plans for the future?
All right. So hit me all at once. Right now, I am still living in Richmond, Virginia. I have a Monday radio show, and that's usually I just play music. And my main focus will be around Virginia politics as well as any type of events going on, following far right activity. Boogaloo Boys are back. They are scheduled to have a rally in Gloucester, Virginia. I'm going to be following Virginia Board of Elections. Wow, what is this? Like 48 hours or 36 hours from now, I'll be at the Virginia Board of Elections following what's going to happen there because it's a big election season in Virginia.
Let me just say, Goad Gatsby is like fucking hero because you know who it's the most thankless job, but it's like one of the most important things is covering state government, and it's been totally decimated by the decline of the newspaper industry. And like if we had an intelligent government, honestly, like they would subsidize people what Goad does. He goes to board meetings and he reports what is going on at a local level and state level. And when you don't have coverage of that, you just get out of control corruption. Of course, because if there are no reporters to like watch you, yeah, why don't you take a cut of some, or like set up a charity that's run by your friend or something like that. So people should recognize that Goad is really performing a valuable public service. I can't believe the Boogaloo Boys are back.
Mike Dunn, he's going to be holding a rally in Gloucester, Virginia on, I don't know, the 19th. And it's a result of four of their guys getting arrested for bringing a gun to a school board meeting to support the transphobic school board member.
What do you make of all the Fed? I know the Fed accusations for Patriot Front are like so stupid because the people who say it, they have no idea that like they got arrested. We know their names. I always challenge them. I'm like, name one member of it. We have their names. Name one, and they can never do it because they're not actually interested. But the Boogaloo Boys is so weird. It is a little. I don't know. What do you make of that?
I would say some people work for law enforcement for free, and in this regard, the people there are just so foolish, especially because like the main person in there is Kenneth Michael Dunn. Mike Dunn. He's in Richmond. He plays from a place, or not from Richmond. He's from Virginia. He's from a place called South Boston, Virginia, which is like right on the North Carolina border. And he's been a very influential person within like militia and Boogaloo movements. Has even been on Alex Jones and tried to one-up him in terms of, this was like right after January 6th, like going out and doing radical things, because Alex Jones was telling his viewers like, stay home, like don't go out and fall into these traps. And he was telling, Mike Dunn was telling people like, don't listen to Alex Jones, go out and do that, like on Alex Jones's show. So, I don't necessarily think that he's like working as an FBI plant, but at the same time, like the way how he acts would definitely is for the benefit of the FBI, it may not be intentional. It may just be like the fact that like he's in his early 20s, just making foolish, rash decisions on telling people like just go out and do illegal activities. If we all do illegal activities, like, they won't bust us all, and kind of like taking for granted that like in his position that he tends to get like fairly easy treatment from law enforcement, whereas in like far left wing like protesters would not get that same like treatment. All right, and everybody, they can follow me on Twitter at Goad Gatsby. You can go on Blue Sky as well. I'm just Goad at Blue Sky, and also I have a Substack, goad.substack.com. So that's my plug.
Okay, man. Thank you so much.